The next thing that I would like to talk about is what we call as the slope of a line, and we would like to see how to find the slope of a line. Now, to understand what the slope of a line is, let me give you a definition for it. Now we're saying slope is the ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change, your vertical change being the rise and the horizontal change being the run. Let's look at how this ratio works. Let's say we have this graph here, and let's take a line, and I'm going to select two random points on this line. We'll call the first point x1, y1, and the coordinates for our second point, we'll call them x2, y2. Now, using these points, I am going to try and make a triangle here, and that will give me a third point, the third corner of my triangle, and I will label the point here. This will be the point x2, y1. Right, there we go. All right, so we said that the slope was the ratio of vertical change to horizontal change. Your vertical change, we're talking about the difference here in your y coordinates. This here represents my vertical change, and to evaluate that change, I will take the difference of my y values. This gives me my rise. To evaluate my horizontal change, we're talking about this horizontal distance here, which will be evaluated by taking the difference in my x coordinates, x2 minus x1, and this is what we will call as my run. So again, your slope is the ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change. Now again, remember, ratio is where we are talking about comparing two values. So in this case, your slope is your vertical change over your horizontal change. Or you can call it as rise over run. Usually for slope, we use the letter m to represent the slope, and in this case, your ratio of rise over run is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, remember from our graph here, we had the vertical change, which was y2 minus y1, and then we had our horizontal change, which was x2 minus x1. So I'm just using these two values here to come up with my slope formula. So your m, your slope, is the vertical change over the horizontal change. Now, one of the things you want to keep in mind when you're working with slope is to remember that the two x values must not equal each other, because if the two values are equal, you will end up with a 0 in your denominator, and of course we cannot divide by 0. So you want to try and avoid those situations. Now Now let's use this slope formula to help us find the slope of a given line. Let's look at this example here. You have the points -4, 3 and -3, 4 that belong to a line, and we are trying to find its slope. What I like to do when I'm working with slopes is to assign the points my x1, y1, x2, y2, and that helps me when I'm trying to substitute these values in my formula for my slope. So you have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now we can go ahead and try substituting our numbers here. Y2 is 4 minus y1 is 3 over x2, which was -3, minus, which comes from the formula, x1, which is a -4. Anytime you have negative values on your coordinates, you want to be careful because you have the negative sign that comes from the formula, and then you will have the negative that comes from the numbers itself. Now let's go ahead and calculate these. You will end up with 1 over -3 plus 4, which gives you a slope of 1. So you can see that we ended up with the slope for this given example as 1. So that basically tells you when you have a slope of 1, you have the ratio being 1 to 1 for the vertical change to the horizontal change. Sometimes they may give you just the equation of the line and ask you to find the slope. So how would we work with that? This is where we would go back and use our information on finding the x and y intercepts. Again, those are the 2 points on the same line, and we can use those to help us with finding the slope of this line. So let's go ahead and start out by finding our x and y intercepts. We will start by finding the x-intercept. So when you find the x-intercept, make your y 0. This will give you x equals 4. So you have one ordered pair, 4, 0. And now to find your y-intercept, you can make your x 0. And this time we end up with and your second ordered pair will be 0, 2. Alright, now let's see how we can use these 2 points to help us come up with the slope of this given equation. We came up with our x-intercept as 4, 0, and we came up with our y-intercept as 0, 2. Again, I want to go ahead and assign my x2, y2, and x1, y1 to these points, and now I can plug these into my slope formula. Alright, so we have, well, let's go ahead and substitute. You have y2, which is 2 minus y1, that is a 0. x2 is a 0 minus x1, which is a 4. And let's see, what do we end up with? You have 2 over -4, which you can reduce it further, and that will give you a slope of -1/2. And there you have it. If they give it to you in an equation form, go ahead and find your x and y intercepts, and then you can plug those values into your slope formula and come up with the slope of the given line.